If you're getting ready to build a Twin Suns deck and you don't know where to start, start here. The leaders that you pick are going to be the most important decision that you make, and the rest of your deck is going to flow through that. So that's why I'm going to be talking in this video about 3 different ways to think about picking your pair of leaders for your Twin Suns deck, how new leaders that have been recently released completely change the way you can build your deck, and then finally, I'm going to show you a deck that I've been working on that I'm genuinely excited to get to the table. When you're picking your pair of leaders for your deck, I think there's 3 main ways that you can think about it. The first one is power. What are the most powerful characters or powerful leaders that I can use? In this case, you're thinking power in a vacuum. Twin Suns runs 1 copy of every card, and there's 80 cards in your deck, which means combinations of leaders alongside of units are at best very unreliable. By the time your leader gets to flip, you have a very low chance of actually seeing the card that you wanted to synergize with your leader. So therefore, it's oftentimes just the best bet to pick the most powerful leaders that you can. Cards like Anakin Skywalker from set 3, for example, is just a very powerful card. If you can couple that with picking 2 leaders that flip on the same turn, you can sometimes create a power spike that overcomes at least one opponent at the table and makes them incapable of coming back from it. If you can protect your health total well enough, sometimes on a turn 5 or 6 or on 5 or 6 resource turn, you're able to flip over 2 Jedis or 2 powerful leader units with high attacks and be able to push all of that damage directly at one opponent's base, sometimes finishing them off very early in the game, healing your own base in the process and setting you up to win the game because you've already extended it. Because everybody else already spent their resources, already passed their turns, and already claimed their tokens, you have an extended turn because you're able to take 2 of your turns actions, flipping over 2 of your leaders. You're then able to use those turns again, those units again, to extend how long it's making you take your turns. And so everybody else around the table is waiting for you to finally pass while you're flipping over leaders, buffing them up, and using them to attack an opponent. Sometimes this can just be the best way to win a game. Pick 2 powerful leaders that are strictly good in a vacuum that come out on the same turn. The next thing that you could go for, though, is synergy, because a lot of your cards might synergize together, but you're not going to be running 3 ofs in a 50-card deck. You're going to be running 1 ofs in an 80-card deck. It's hard to get that synergy out of your cards all the time. And so if you want to get synergy, the best place that you can get that synergy is pre-planned in the leaders that you pick. I think of one of the first decks that I ever played or made, which was Gar Saxon and Tarkin. Saxon gives a +1 attack for anything that has an upgrade on it. And of course, Tarkin from set 1 puts out an experience token, which is considered an upgrade. So that just meant for 1 resource on anything that was Imperial, I believe, I could put a +2/+1 on them instead of the normal +1/+1 that Tarkin would put on them. This built-in synergy enabled my deck to build around that and enabled me to win a lot of games because I was just more of a threat to my opponents because my 2 leaders happened to synergize and work together. And with more and more leaders coming out all the time in Twin Suns, there's more and more synergies. And spoiler alert, the deck that I'm building right now that I'm going to showcase in this video, I went the synergy route. The last route is just thinking thematically. I just want to play because they're fun to play together. In this case, we're playing Cassian Andor with Jyn Erso, and we're playing, I don't know, at some less than 30 health suboptimal base because we just think it's a cool combination. We're playing Vader and Emperor Palpatine. Maybe we're playing Chancellor Palpatine and we're playing Anakin Skywalker. You're picking 2 people because you love them. You want to play Clone Wars era, and so yeah, you're going to grab Dooku and General Grievous to play together. You want to grab 2 leaders that just make sense together. They fit in the fiction, they fit in the lore, and they're fun to play together. I think that Twin Suns lends itself very well to these very thematic and super fun decks. You don't have to go min-maxing and always go for what's most powerful because you can bet that someone else around the table is likely to do that, and they're probably going to draw the aggro and the ire of everybody else around the table. Sometimes being the least threatening player at the Twin Suns table gives you the highest chance of success. This is never the case in normal 2-player 1v1 matches of Star Wars Unlimited, but in Twin Suns, at times, being the less threatening player at the table is actually the better place to land. In that sort of game of politics around the table, these thematic decks that are fun, but maybe aren't so focused on being either synergistic or raw powerful, is sometimes the best path that you have to actually scoring a victory. And to be honest with you, they're frequently the most fun. I think of my Boba and Django deck, which would be a thematic deck that would be a powerful deck and that would oftentimes be synergistic as well, to be entirely fair. They're kind of the rare two that kind of fit into the same category. However, you can probably think through of some other thematic deck ideas as well. A couple of leaders that you've always wanted to see team up, or maybe two that you thought would never team up, and it would be funny to see them working together. Those are the three types of decks: the powerful deck, the synergistic deck, and the thematic deck. As you're picking your leaders, be thinking through one of those three lenses. Okay, let's talk about a couple of the new leaders and how they changed the game for Twin Suns players. Well, when the game first released, every leader was either heroism or villainy. They had one of those two symbols on them. As the game has advanced and as they've continued to create new content for it, we've gotten a wider variety of options. And this matters because according to the rules in Twin Suns right now, your leaders can be anybody so long as both heroism and villainy are not represented on the front sides of their cards. In previous decks, I've used examples like the original Chancellor Palpatine, for example, who is heroism on one side, on the front, so you can pair him with a heroism leader, but then he can flip to the backside and he becomes a villainy unit, which enables you to put both heroism and villainy units and cards inside your deck because you don't have to pay that extra 2 resource tax. Now we have even more leaders. For example, we have a double cunning leader. That double cunning leader in DJ enables us to do things like run 2 yellow icons without having to sacrifice another icon somewhere else. So we can run, say, a Darth Vader, a red and black Darth Vader, for example, with a blue base, and then 2 yellow icons on our other leader, which enables us to play that cunning card or some of those other slightly overtuned and spicy double same aspect cards. In addition to that, we also got 2 other new cards in the most recent set, one of those being Saw Gerrera, which would give us a command and aggression, a green and a red aspect icon. Those things allow us to then pick up a blue base and maybe a yellow leader, which allows us to funnel everything either into heroism or villainy, but enables us to play all 4 aspects because we have the vigilance, we have the command, we have the aggression, and we have the cunning aspects between both of our leaders and the base that we pick. This opens up a tremendous number of opportunities. Prior in Twin Suns, you were largely limited. You were limited in just picking 3 different aspects, your base and your 2 leaders, and they would share either heroism or villainy, which would give you 2 of those icons, but there's no really cards printed that have a double villainy or a double heroism icon on them. So you were always wasting one of them. Now, if you want more variety, you can take that. If you want less variety, but you want a double icon in cunning right now, which I'm sure in the future we'll get double icons with other leaders that match, you can tap into some of those more powerful double same icon cards, double aspect cards, and that's really, really cool. This makes Twin Suns a really exciting time to build around. Yeah, you want to think, do I want them to be powerful? Do I want them to be thematic? Do I want them to be synergistic? But you can now begin thinking, how can I do really cool things to ensure that I can play both heroism and villainy cards, or I can play all aspect cards, or I can play some of those tricky to get in your deck and very powerful double aspect cards without sacrificing an entire aspect of the 3 that I usually have to put in my deck. These are really interesting things to think about as you're getting ready to build your Twin Suns deck. Now, with all of that, let's dive into the deck that I'm most excited to check out right now as I'm coming back to Twin Suns. This video was brought to you by my friends over at the Feisty Goblin Game House. They have a great selection of cards and board games, both physically and on their TCG site. You can check them out by heading over to their website. This is my LGS, and I am proud to be able to support them and raise awareness about the products that they sell. They always sell everything at really competitive prices. They have an awesome Discord server and a fantastic staff. So if you're looking to pick up Star Wars Unlimited singles or products, or singles and products for any one of a whole bunch of different card games or even Warhammer and board games, you should check them out online right now. When it came down to picking the leaders for this deck that I'm working on right now, I actually started with the aspects that I wanted to use because I really wanted to make sure that I used a new card that's just coming out called Single Reactor Ignition, which allows me to wipe the board from all of my opponents and deal damage to them according to the number of units that I wiped out. I thought that was cool and really thematic. I also love making strong villainy decks, and so I wanted to go in the direction of villainy for this one. And I wasn't looking to play Sith, although there's plenty of them now. You could play a lot of Sith Lords and really powerful Sith-type characters, and that would be really thematic and really cool. But I wanted to go back to my Imperial roots and build a deck around sort of the ruthlessness and cunning and the logic of some of the Imperial leaders that didn't have access to using the Force. So I ended up going with green, red, blue, and black for my aspects, right? Aggression, vigilance, command, and villainy. These four. So I took a look at the different leaders, looked for something that would work together, and decided to go with the new version of Grand Admiral Thrawn and the new Krennic. Well, largely because thematically they fit together perfectly. Thrawn is always playing chess, multiple levels out beyond anybody else. He's the master strategist. Krennic is willing to sacrifice anything to get the mission accomplished. I thought those two guys were really fun together. Gonna go ahead and splash it with a red base that feels good with them. I typically am always going for a 30 health base because Twin Suns is really about how much health you have, and it's really unpredictable, so it's very rarely actually beneficial to have a base power that you're going to use. So we're going to go ahead and splash a cool Naval Headquarters base alongside of our two leaders. A quick dive and a look into what our two leaders do. Well, Thrawn makes us so we can double any of the things that happen whenever our units are defeated. So if we have a when defeated effect on a unit, whenever that unit is defeated, we can activate Thrawn to double its effectiveness. Super cool. Another thing that's really cool is that the brand new Krennic actually benefits from sacrificing your units. So someone won't attack into you because they don't want your units to die so that you won't benefit from their deaths. Well, now you can just use Krennic to sacrifice them, gain a credit token, which is going to ramp you towards our more powerful top end that's available to us in all of the cards. Maybe not in the current iteration of Star Wars Unlimited, but in the vintage or like the full version of the game, we get access to some very powerful villainy top end cards that we're only going to benefit from using credits for. And so we're using the combination of these two leaders, the calculated uses of sacrifice by Grand Admiral Thrawn and the ruthlessness of Krennic to sacrifice his own units, his own soldiers, and his own resources to accomplish the mission and end the game in our favor. Okay, for the decks that I'm going to do on this channel, I'm going to give you a little overview of what I would put in a deck, but I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it. If you'd like to just copy a deck list, you can copy the one that's in the description of this video that I've given you for the deck that I'm going to be talking about. But I think the funnest part of Twin Suns is getting the bones in place and then allowing experimentation to happen. Allowing you to look through and experiment with different aspects and different card combinations, I think is a tremendous amount of fun. So I want to always leave room for you to do that. And instead of making an endless video with 80 cards, I'm going to highlight just a couple. In any good Twin Suns deck, you really do want to try to get in about 20 or even more turn one plays. So things are going to cost you 1 or 2 resources so that you can get out of the gate and don't fall behind and become an easy target for everybody else right at the beginning of the game. And for this, we're going to be looking for cards that are going to have when defeated effects. And the good news is most of the cards that we're going to be looking for with when defeated effects are in these very early turns. In fact, a lot of them are 2 resource cards. Cards like Val, for example, a 2 resource 2/4 on turn 1 that's vigilance that has a bounty to deal 3 damage. But here's the great news. You can sacrifice it and double her effect with our leaders, allowing you to not just take 3 damage, but hand out 4 experience tokens in the same process. You pair that with the right other cards, and guess what? You're going to have the ability to hand out a heck of a lot more than that. The next one I want to highlight is a card that came out in Sparks of Rebellion and has never really seen his heyday, but in this deck, it just makes sense. And that is going to be Admiral Moti. And with this Admiral, you're able to sacrifice him, being a 2 resource 1/1, and this is great for later in the game in order to sacrifice him to gain credits and ready 2 villainy units. The vast majority of cards that you're going to play in this deck, and I know I just showed one that wasn't, but the vast majority of them are going to be villainy units. So you're going to be able to ready most of your stuff, including your leaders, which is one of the things that makes this Admiral so incredibly powerful, is dropping him on a turn that you're flipping your leaders, finding a way to sacrifice him after you've attacked with your leaders, and being able to ready both of them and attack again is going to be extremely powerful. Other leaders or other units to consider, especially new ones, is Admiral Ozell, I think I got his name right, which just allows you to impact the entire board. In Twin Suns, everything that says all opponents just becomes multiplicative. It gets better than what it was. Before, in normal Star Wars Unlimited gameplay, that's only going to hit one other person. So yeah, this guy makes one person discard a card. In a 4-player game, a 3-resource 3/1 with a when defeated effect just means that you make everybody around the table discard 2 cards. You went from losing 1 card alongside of Thrawn in our deck with 3 other players to getting 6 cards out of the game with 1 simple ability. Incredibly powerful. You also get to play cards like Self-Destruct, cards you really wouldn't normally see. A 2-resource, sacrifice a unit, deal 4 to another unit. Well, when it becomes a benefit for you to sacrifice your unit and you can double the effect of them whenever they go off and die, it becomes really beneficial for you to have multiple ways to sacrifice your own units in order to deal damage and deal with your opponent's board. One of my favorite cards inside of one of these decks is the Shuttle ST-149. Its ability reads that when it hits the battlefield and when it's defeated, you get to take a token upgrade. Experience token or an experience token or a shield token from an opponent and move it somewhere else. Now you can take it from one of your own units and move it to someone else as well, but I think one of the really powerful parts about this in Twin Suns is you're just a lot more likely with 3 opponents to have people with shield tokens out there. And if you can grab a shield token and throw it on one of your units as a sentinel or keep something alive, it's a deterrent for other players attacking you. Not to mention, every time somebody decides that they want to aggro on you and start attacking your units and removing them, you're actually benefiting from it, which makes you a slightly less applicable target for your opponents, meaning in the game of politicking around Twin Suns, you might be able to encourage people to attack somebody else's unit and remove them because it's actually going to benefit you to lose your unit. But this Shuttle ST-149 is a great grab for this deck and certainly one that I would have in there. Beyond that, I'd be looking for big bombs in the end game. Once again, we're looking to play early game. 1, 2, 3, 4 drops maybe, and there's a lot of them with the when defeated keywords, so we can double them up and use them. And then we're looking to use that alongside credits and some mid-game ramp to hopefully jump us up to our big bombs. So yeah, things like Resupply and Super Laser Technician are in this deck. You definitely want to have them added in, but so would be maybe Resupply Carrier, for example. Just anything that gets you a little bit ahead of your opponents because their hero flip turns are going to be more powerful than yours. So when they're flipping their more powerful heroes than what you have, you want to be able to drop some late game bombs. Like for example, Relentless. Relentless impacts all of your opponents. The first action or event card that they play each round just gets canceled for every one of your opponents. This is taxing on everybody around the battlefield, and so it's incredibly powerful. Once again, another one of those cards that multiply. Another one that does that is a card like Devastator, an 8-resource 9/6 space unit that when it comes down deals 4 indirect damage to each opponent. That 4 indirect damage could be a life or death situation at this point in the game, especially when you're dropping a 9 attack unit onto the board. And keep in mind, this card would usually deal 4 damage. In a 4-player game, you're getting a set up 12 damage going out to your opponent's boards, which is incredibly powerful. The last card I wanted to highlight is Apology Accepted, which just allows you to sacrifice a unit to give 2 experience tokens to another unit. Any cards like this that allow you to sacrifice your units are really good inside this deck. Now, keep in mind, you can also run stuff at the top end like our original Darth Vader. Even some of the later Vader cards are pretty good in this deck as well. You're going to want to run Super Laser Blast and Single Reactor Ignition, the new one that allows you to wipe the board. All of these sort of standard stuff. And I would also probably run things like the Emperor's Return or Emperor Palpatine's Return so that you can pull some of the units that you've sacrifice throughout the game back on the board and get their effect and their on-defeat effect again. Now, keep in mind, a lot of units with an on-defeat effect have less stats than other units do. Like a normal statted unit might be a little bit more powerful than yours, so you're going to be a little bit under curve, and you're going to have to be creative, specifically with how you're using your credit tokens and your other cards that allow you to deal damage by sacrificing units or give out experience tokens in order to get ahead. You're going to want to try to make sure that you're using that almost every round. Now, one of the unique things is it gives you access to a decent amount of healing, because there's a few early game cards out now in turns 1 and 2 that allow you to heal on defeat, and being able to double that healing is not at all unconsequential. Thrawn's ability to double that amount of healing and having some replications of that in the early game with the new stormtroopers like a door technician and the old Onyx Squadron TIE fighter, both of those cards are really important for this deck because it's your access mostly to the healing that you're wanting to do. And of course, you can always run things like Turbo Laser Salvo and other board clears and wipes that maybe you wouldn't run normally in Twin Suns or are now in Eternal format. You can throw them into this deck as well. Experiment and toy around with it. Start with that base of a lot of when defeated effects in the early game, combined with some ramp effects in the mid game if you can, and then bring those all together between credits and ramp and drop those big bombs that are going to end the game in the last stages. Well, now it's up to you to finish off this Twin Suns deck, and I'd love to know how you did it. So drop a link to the deck that you built in the comment section. I want to check it out and see how it's different or the same from the version of the deck that I decided to make. And better yet, you could join us over on Discord. There's a link to that in the description of this video. The Twin Suns Syndicate Discord has a weekly game night, card talk, lots of places to hang out, and lots of people who love talking both Star Wars Unlimited and Twin Suns. You can even join in on our Thursday evening game night, where we even have a leaderboard to see who can make it to the top of the Syndicate. So join us over there as well. Finally, as I'm signing out for today, I just want to encourage you, like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. If you know you have someone who likes Star Wars Unlimited or is enjoying Twin Suns, I think they'd enjoy this video as much as you did. So grab a link and share it with them. It would help the channel grow, and I would really appreciate it. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.